Have you ever wondered about the history of the mystical land known as Tibet, nestled high in the Himalayas? A place where the sky is a special kind of blue and the mountains appear to touch the heavens. A land steeped in spirituality, draped in mystery and carrying an air of the ethereal. This is Tibet, a region located on the Tibetan Plateau in Asia, the highest in the world and home to the majestic Mount Everest. Its geographical location, surrounded by the world's highest mountain ranges, has made it a place of seclusion, adding to its mystical allure. Tibet has been a subject of fascination for many, drawing in seekers of knowledge, spirituality, and adventure. Its rich history, unique culture, and the remarkable resilience of its people make it a captivating study. The history of Tibet is a tapestry woven with threads of triumph, tragedy, and transcendence. Join us as we embark on a journey through the annals of Tibetan history. The early history of Tibet is shrouded in mystery. The genesis of this enchanting region begins with the formation of the Tibetan Plateau, an event that occurred more than 2 million years ago during the late Pliocene era. The plateau emerged as a result of tectonic forces, lifting the Earth's crust into what is now known as the roof of the world. Its formation set the stage for a unique ecosystem that eventually became home to the earliest inhabitants of Tibet. The early Tibetans were a resilient group of people. They adapted to the harsh, high-altitude environment and thrived amidst the towering peaks and expansive valleys. Their lives were interwoven with the rhythm of the seasons and the bounty of the land, creating a deep connection with nature that is vividly reflected in their spiritual beliefs. Before the advent of Buddhism, the indigenous Bon religion was prevalent. This ancient faith, steeped in shamanistic and animistic traditions, shaped the early cultural and societal structures of Tibet. The Bon religion was not just a belief system, but a way of life that encapsulated the harmony between humans and the natural world. As centuries rolled on, tribal communities began to coalesce into early Tibetan kingdoms. Around the 1st century BCE, the Yarlung dynasty emerged as a significant power, establishing the first historical Tibetan state in the Yarlung Valley. The rulers of this dynasty were instrumental in fostering a distinct Tibetan identity, characterized by unique linguistic, cultural, and religious attributes. However, it was not until the 7th century that Tibet truly began to make its mark on the world stage. This period marked a turning point in Tibetan history with the rise of the Tibetan Empire. This empire, under the leadership of its dynamic emperors, would not only consolidate the Tibetan plateau under a single rule, but also significantly influence the cultural and spiritual trajectory of the region. The 7th century marked a turning point in Tibetan history, with the rise of the Tibetan Empire. This era of political consolidation and cultural evolution paved the way for the Tibet we know today, a blend of ancient traditions and modern influences nestled high up in the heart of the Himalayas. The Tibetan Empire, an era of expansion and prosperity, began in the 7th century. This was a time when Tibet evolved from a collection of tribal entities to a unified empire under the rule of a charismatic leader, Emperor Songtsen Gampo. His reign, which marked the start of the Tibetan Empire, was characterized by significant territorial expansion and cultural development. Songtsen Gampo is often considered a heroic figure in Tibetan history. His military conquests extended the boundaries of Tibet, reaching as far as parts of China, India, and Central Asia. He wasn't merely a warrior, though. His legacy is also deeply entwined with the cultural and spiritual identity of Tibet. One of his most significant achievements was the introduction of Buddhism to Tibet. Songtsen Gampo, influenced by his Buddhist wives, one from Nepal and the other from China, embraced Buddhism and made efforts to integrate it into Tibetan society. This ushered in a new era where Buddhism became a central part of Tibetan culture, influencing its art, literature, and everyday life. Furthermore, Songtsen Gampo was instrumental in the creation of the Tibetan script. Recognizing the need for a written language to consolidate his empire and propagate Buddhism, he tasked his minister, Thonmi Sambota, with the job. Thonmi Sambota, after studying in India, created a script that was uniquely Tibetan. This script became a crucial tool for the spread of Buddhism and for the preservation of Tibet's rich oral traditions. Yet this golden age of the Tibetan Empire wasn't destined to last. After Songtsen Gampo's death, subsequent emperors struggled to maintain the unity and prosperity that had characterized his reign. By the end of the 9th century, the empire was riddled with internal conflicts and power struggles. This led to the disintegration of the Tibetan Empire and plunged the region into a time of turmoil. The Tibetan Empire fell into disarray after the 9th century, leading to a period often referred to as the Era of Fragmentation. The Era of Fragmentation was a turbulent period in Tibetan history. Following the collapse of the Tibetan Empire in the 9th century, Tibet was plunged into a state of political disarray that lasted for nearly 8 centuries. The once unified empire was divided, with regional powers seizing control, each vying for dominance in a landscape marked by internal conflict and instability. At the heart of this fragmentation were the lords and ministers, who often held more power than the nominal kings. This was a time when the strength of your army determined your influence, and the endless battles for power tore the fabric of Tibet into countless pieces. Yet amidst this chaos, the resilience of the Tibetan people shone through as they sought to maintain their unique culture and identity. During this period, the Sakya and Kagyu sects of Tibetan Buddhism rose to prominence. The Sakyas, known for their scholarly tradition and philosophical teachings, held political power in Tibet for more than 100 years. They offered a beacon of stability in a time of unrest, and their influence still echoes throughout Tibetan society today. Similarly, the Kagyu sect, known as the oral lineage, played a significant role in shaping Tibet's spiritual landscape. Their emphasis on meditation and direct transmission of teachings from master to student had a profound impact on the development of Tibetan Buddhism. Despite the political turmoil, this era was also a time of great cultural and religious flourishing. The teachings of these two sects, along with other schools of Tibetan Buddhism, were instrumental in nurturing the spiritual life of the Tibetan people, providing a sense of hope and unity amidst the chaos. However, the era of fragmentation was not to last forever. In the 17th century, the tide turned once again with the rise of the Dalai Lamas. This marked a new era in Tibetan history, bringing with it a renewed sense of unity and purpose. But that, dear listeners, is a story for another time. Stay tuned for the next chapter of our journey through the fascinating history of Tibet. The 17th century marked the beginning of the era of the Dalai Lamas. As the world was adjusting to the new realities of the modern age, Tibet was experiencing a transformation of its own. The fifth Dalai Lama, known as the Great Fifth, established the Ganden Phodrang government in 1642, marking a significant shift in the political and spiritual landscape of Tibet. This new government was more than just an administrative body. It was a symbol of the unity and identity of the Tibetan people, with the Dalai Lama at its helm. The Dalai Lama was not just a spiritual leader, but also a political one, embodying the dual roles with grace and wisdom. The Dalai Lama's influence extended beyond the borders of Tibet, reaching into the neighboring regions and even as far as the imperial court in Beijing. The era of the Dalai Lamas was a time of profound cultural and spiritual development in Tibet. Tibetan Buddhism, with its rich tapestry of rituals, scriptures, and practices, flourished under the patronage of the Dalai Lamas. Monasteries and study centers were established across the region, fostering an environment of learning and contemplation. Yet, the Dalai Lamas were not isolated figures, cloistered away in their palaces. They were deeply engaged in the affairs of the state, shaping policies and making decisions that had far-reaching implications. Their leadership was marked by a deep concern for the welfare of the Tibetan people, guided by principles of compassion, justice, and wisdom. Under the Dalai Lamas, Tibet maintained a delicate balance of autonomy and interaction with its powerful neighbors, navigating the intricate web of geopolitics in the region. This era saw the strengthening of Tibetan culture, religion, and identity, even as it faced challenges and pressures from within and without. The era of the Dalai Lamas came to an abrupt end in the mid-20th century. This period was a significant chapter in the rich and complex history of Tibet, a time of spiritual enlightenment, political consolidation, and cultural flowering. It was an era that left an indelible mark on the Tibetan landscape, shaping its destiny for centuries to come. Modern Tibet has been a subject of international attention and controversy. The mid-20th century witnessed a significant shift in Tibet's history. Following the Chinese Revolution in the late 40s, Tibet was incorporated into the People's Republic of China in the 50s, a move that led to a myriad of socio-political changes. This incorporation, however, was met with resistance, both internally and externally. Internally, a significant number of Tibetans, including their spiritual leader, the 14th Dalai Lama, fled to India, establishing what is known today as the Tibetan exile community. This community, while physically absent from Tibet, has played a major role in preserving Tibetan culture and advocating for Tibet's autonomy. Externally, the global community has shown interest and concern over the human rights situation in Tibet, leading to a complex interplay of diplomacy, advocacy, and politics. Today, Tibet continues to be a region of interest and contention on the global stage. The history of Tibet is a tapestry of cultural richness, political change, and spiritual depth. From its early beginnings as a rugged, remote region, Tibet emerged as a formidable empire in the 7th to 9th centuries, leaving indelible imprints on the landscape of Asia. The era of fragmentation that followed, spanning from the 9th to 17th centuries, was a period of great turmoil, but also of cultural growth and resilience. The subsequent era of the Dalai Lamas, from the 17th century to 1950, witnessed the rise of Tibet as a spiritual beacon, casting its influence far beyond its borders. In the modern era, from 1950 to the present, Tibet continues to navigate its unique path, grappling with complex issues while striving to preserve its rich heritage. This narrative is a testament to Tibet's enduring spirit. Thank you for joining on this journey through the history of Tibet. Please subscribe to our channel for more intriguing historical narratives.